Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Beautifully Broken podcast. We are here with a repeat offender. We have Dr. J. Davidson. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me back, Freddie. A repeat offender. I was like, whoa.
Yeah. You need to be back. There's things that we need to talk about. And I got to say, since January, I have been all up in the lymphatic system and drainage, and it's really changed so many of the lingering, stagnated issues that have plagued me for years. And I'm such a freshman in it. And, when I went to ECO in Boise and I heard some of the things you were saying about the fascia and the interstitial fluids, I was just again confirmed how important it is and why people need to know about this. So you've really been onto this idea of drainage and drainage pathways. And I'd love from your clinical experience why this is so important to you.
Yeah. This is an area I very passionate in because I see and have seen how impactful it's been. And my wife, back in 2012 when my daughter was born and her body basically stopped functioning. She stopped producing breast milk after a couple months and shutting down. And it was a really dark period. But it was very eye-opening for us of like, okay, clearly there's an issue here. What are we missing? And that's really when I started deep diving into toxicity. But what I found is, the experts, quote unquote, at the time were like, do this, try this, take this. And it's like, she just seemed to react to almost everything. And that's what really, it was that moment that opened me up to realize, okay, why is she reacting where apparently all these other people are fine with, such and such protocol. And that's when drainage just hit me, right in the face. I was like, man, she needs her pathways opened up. She might be little and not a huge person, but it doesn't matter the size of somebody, like your drainage pathways could be clogged. And it's likened to the sink, right? So if your sink is plugged and you're just trying to put more water up top on it, right? You're just trying to kill some pathogens, just trying to detox. It's basically like you're just pouring more water in the sink. Drainage is unplugging the bottom of the sink so things flow, so that when you do kill a pathogen or multiple, or you start detoxifying, it has somewhere to go. And that's so critical just for normal functioning of the body. I feel like in the functional health movement, drainage is fine unless somebody has edema, gets brought up. But I mean, in order for edema to show up, that means your lymph has to be 50% cut off in function just before it even shows up. So if your lymph functions 45%, or let's say 55 out of 100%, it's only 45% dysfunctional, you could have no swelling, no edema, which means from a physical side, you're like, oh, well, I'm fine. I don't have any swelling. It's like, but yeah, your lymph's only functioning 55%. So just think when you get a little bit of stress, when you have a traumatic accident, or you get into relationship issues or money problems or career or fill the blank in, it's like, no wonder symptoms show up because you're already not functioning 100%. And so there's a big difference between drainage and detox. Detox, I think of it's grabbing onto chemicals, pulling them out of the body. Drainage is just the normal pathways that need to be open, moving, and flowing, right? It's the pipes, the colon. So if you're not pooping at least every single day, if not twice a day, that pathway is just not open. The kidneys are a pathway. The liver and bile duct system with the whole digestive tract and all the juices flowing, that's a pathway. The lungs, sweating, lymphatic, like you said, is a pathway, right? So we have all these different pathways that just need to be opened and moving. And if any of them are clogged up, it can, depending on the location, it can clog other ones up. So if the GI tract is clogged up, you're not pooping, that backs pretty much everything up. That's like the bottom of the sink. So that's why just making sure somebody is, going number 2 regularly is so important. Where the lymphatic system, right, if that's plugged up, well, then the connective tissue or the extracellular matrix, like you mentioned earlier, that's not going to drain well, because that's where a lot of the drainage actually happens from the connective tissue or the extracellular matrix is into the lymph. So it depends on what gets plugged up as to what gets impacted. But I have yet to hear, and maybe this is possible, but I've yet to hear anybody that's like, Dr. J, I've just been draining too much. It's like, I mean, besides maybe taking something where you're having super loose bowels, and pooping way too much. I mean, outside of that, I've never heard like, oh, I'm not well because I have too much drainage. It's always the lack of functioning in the drainage area.
Yeah. I would also say in there, as far as detoxification systems, I'm a firm believer that our nervous system also needs to detox. Like that is a way in which we get some pretty wretched things out of the body that kind of bounce around the fascia.
Yeah, well, yeah, the nervous system is absolutely critical. I mean, there's so many different things when you're looking at the body. We're taught really on a science side. It's all about the biochemistry. It's about the chemical reactions in the body. But that's just a piece of it. I mean, we have electrical signals in the body. We have photons or light, biophoton signals in the body. We have magnetism or magnetic signals that the body gives off or even senses. And then there's also this more unseen energy, scalar energy or ether energy that our bodies emit and also read. And so I feel like we're we're at the point now where we're starting to open up to maybe we don't know everything about health, and maybe there is unseen
Hmm.
energies or there's other things that we need to take in account, and even the nervous system. I mean, to think about that, to think about that the nervous system would only function based on like biochemicals going down an axon, a neuron to the axon, and going from point to point. To really think, when they break it down and they say, oh well, it takes such and such milliseconds, per inch or per foot, to get there. If I'm operating and I want to move my leg from my brain to my foot, I'm 6 feet tall. So in order for that to happen, that there's a little leg point, but I can literally move my leg at the instantaneous moment, which to me says there's probably something more, even with the nervous system, that is happening. And I forgot to mention sound, right? Like our tissues can emit sound, vibration, frequency, it can receive it. Connective tissue is a great example, or the extracellular matrix, like you said, even just storing emotions. So just putting it all together, I think it's very humbling for us to just say, here's what we know so far, but be open to the fact that there's probably a whole lot more. Just like when you said the nervous system needs to detox, totally makes sense. I mean,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, I haven't heard people talk about it, but I totally agree with that.
Yeah, it's fascinating. When you were mentioning your wife having these paradoxical reactions, like she takes this supplement and this happens, but that's not supposed to be that way. That I hear that reflected across the board, especially with chronic Lyme, mold, chronic fatigue syndrome. It's like I'm not reacting in the typical format. Why is that? Why do people have those paradoxical reactions in your
Uh,
clinical experience?
I mean, this starts going down some rabbit holes, but let's go down them. So originally, I thought, oh, it must be a mineral imbalance, or it must be MTHFR, because that was like all the rage 10 years ago. Until you realize like most of everybody has some type of MTHFR variant, right? They call it defect, but I think just variant is a probably more accurate word to use. Um, Really, what I find clinically now to be why people react the way they do, and especially you mentioned it, mycotoxins or mold illness. This is classic for it, where people are in a mold environment. The mold produces a toxin. Some people in the household react, some people don't, and then it permeates your physical clothes and bedding and all this. So people have to purge, and so it's like this life transition of just getting rid of stuff
Mm,
and then going into a new place. But you find with some people, like it follows them. It's like no matter where they go, oh, it's mold, it's mold, it's mold. They walk into a building, oh my gosh, it's mold. I can sense it, I can feel it. And it's like, okay, there's something more than just mold, because mold's been around for how many thousands and thousands? I mean, it's been around since the beginning, fungi, right? So how can humans coexist with it? Now, obviously, where we're at in this day and age with the amount of chemicals, right? The EPA and the 86,000 plus chemicals registered, and how houses are built with sheetrock that just, a little moisture, can start brewing mold. Like I totally get that. But there's a moment where you just have to step back and you're like, something else is going on. And that something else is really, I believe, a spiritual. I believe we're in the spiritual warfare, this spiritual battle that's going on right now. And even if somebody isn't religious or spiritual, like when I say it, a lot of times people are like, yeah, it makes sense. I mean, it feels like war right now with all kinds of the chaos, all the emotions that are happening. And you have to understand that us being on earth, and us being on this earthly experience, spiritual beings being in this physical body, in this earthly realm, like there's distortions, there's things, traumas, things that we've accumulated from birth to even before we were born to, being inside the womb of mom to birth to just growing up. I mean, how many different traumas and things happen from a child 0 to age 6 before we even, like, we're so young, it's hard to even remember going back to that. And all those different traumas basically end up being grips or, what's a better way to say it? Yeah, they're basically like grips for these unseen energies, these attachments, these hitchhikers, whether they're entities, demons, disincarnates, I mean, etc. Like there's such a realm right now that needs to be opened up in the spiritual side of it to really connect to the physical health. And so what I see is somebody that's mold or Lyme and they're getting the opposite reactions. To me, there's a hitchhiker on them. There's an unseen energy. And as soon as you clear that off, it's like immediately you can see it in their face. Wow. And think about how many times, Freddie, I wasn't anticipating we were going to talk about this on the podcast, but we're going down this route.
That's
how many
okay.
times do you see human nature of the addiction problems that humans have, whether it's food, gambling, sex, or porn? I mean, like it's unbelievable. Smoking, some type of drug or just some repetitive activity that even the person says it, I don't know what's got into me. Like, it's just like something else is making me want to do that. And I'm going to tell you, yeah, there's an unseen energy in this world. And so just to think that in order for you to get healthy, all you have to do is change your diet and exercise, like, I'm sorry, that's, there's so much more to health. But then to think, oh, well, I need to detox. I need to go get my feet on the earth. I need to see sunrise and get some sun during the day. It's like, yeah, absolutely. Those are impactful. But there's also going the next level. There's also the emotional, the emotions and traumas we carry in us to let go. There's also these hitchhikers and unseen energies to let go. And it's as you peel that onion back, each layer, you start to realize like, whoa, I wasn't even functioning at my optimum before. I mean, I might not even be right now. Like, who knows how awesome I can be feeling as I peel these things back.
Yeah. Yeah, I would join with you in saying there's always going to be more layers, right? Because you hear this all the time. People that we all start somewhere. Where's our road to health? What was the thing that really kicked you into overdrive to really reclaim the vibrancy you knew was inside you? And most of that, from my experience, people realize how short it is. They're like, oh my God, I don't have a lot of time. I don't have time to be this sick. So there is that driving force. I have been really caught up in I don't know if you watch the news or how much you're I love episodic comedies before I go to bed. I like to watch like a little short, funny, like episodic, and it just downregulates my body. And so I've been revisiting Friends, and the death of one of the main characters in that show, who I followed very, very closely. And he was such a comic genius, and he was so talented. And here's a guy who was very public about living with his demons. And, going back and watching the show, you can see, you're like, oh my God, in season 3 or season 4, I was like, I missed it then. But now going back, and you can see how bad he was struggling at the time. There's these times like little micro moments off camera. And I guess my point is, like, we are all addicts. I firmly believe. Right now I'm addicted to health, and I'm addicted to time in nature. I'm addicted to working on my lymphatic system. I'm addicted to empowering other people to learn better about their bodies. So we all pick something to spend our time here on the planet. And Yeah, I think it's so important to have guides and have people that you can trust leading you down this path, and you got to do it with somebody else, right? It's not a solo journey to go alone, which is why I lean in so heavily to the education you guys provide. And I just want to celebrate you. The webinar I was just watching, in which you were just talking about these, the leaking microvasculature around the body being such a problem for human beings. I didn't realize 15 years ago, I was taking this thing called Wobazyme on an empty stomach. It was a proteolytic enzyme, and it was taking all my Lyme and all my inflammation. It was like blunting it really far down. I was like, and my doctor was like, no, it's an enzyme. It's for food digestion. Shouldn't be doing that. And little did I know, I was probably working on these proteins that were leaking through the microvasculature into my tissue. So I want to talk about that. Was there any validity to what I was doing 15 years ago with Wobazyme?
Yeah, no, I remember Warpenzyme too. I wonder if they still make that stuff. That was definitely.
Can I sidebar that? It
Yeah.
worked for really, really well. And then I forgot what happened. It was a German company. I think they got bought and they totally changed the formula. And then all of a sudden it didn't work anymore. It was really wild. I had like a great year and a half on it. So back to you on proteolytic enzymes and what was happening there.
Yeah. So, well, if you back up and look at the human body, and a lot of things are just estimates, so give or take, but they say we have about 60,000 miles of vasculature, like blood vessels in the body. 60,000 miles. And you're like, how's that even possible? Because a lot of these are microscopic, or what you called microvascular, right? They're really tiny. They're capillaries. They're really small. And you're looking about 97% of that 60,000 miles is this microvasculature, these really tiny, if you will, blood vessels, capillaries. And so that's what most of the vascular, as far as length of the blood vessel, is made out of. So it's 58,000 plus miles of these microvascular blood vessels. And what happens? So the blood flows through the heart. Be careful not to use the word pump. Flows through the heart.
Thank you.
Out the arteries, and basically it's a thicker branch to a tinier ones. It just branches off like a tree and gets to really small ones, and that's it's carrying oxygen, the red blood cells, and it's doing basically it slows down the farthest point away from the heart, slows down, pretty much almost stops the red blood cells, shimmies back and forth, releases its oxygen, then gets picked up by the venous capillary. Some red blood cells sneak through, get picked up by the lymph, etc. Like, this plasma, if you will, that's in that is blood, essentially blood plasma. And in this process, when we have traumas, so we are exposed to mold, we drink some radioactive elements in our water supply, we, get exposed to glyphosate, some herbicide or environmental toxin. These toxins basically damage, and what we know from literature, and this goes back a while ago, as you heard on the webinar, is that it causes leaky blood vessels. And the leaky blood vessel is in that tiniest spot, the capillary or the postvenule. And so if the blood vessel is leaking, that means that it can't keep all the fluid it needs into that blood vessel and keep it moving back to the heart, venous supply back to the heart. So if it's leaking, where's it leak to? And it leaks into the connective tissue. It leaks into the extracellular matrix, depending on the names you want to say, right? Fascia. It's all basically the same thing, just depends on the terms you want to use. So it leaks into the connective tissue. And that's what causes overburdening of the lymph, where the lymph has to drain all this extra stuff that's leaking out. And then proteins and these other things sneak out of the blood vessels and get into the tissues. And when they do, then it starts causing dysfunction. It starts causing inflammation. It starts lowering the oxygenation of the cells. And so all these different processes happen within the body to try to deal with this. And so if somebody were to take a proteolytic enzyme, and basically that means you're taking an enzyme on an empty stomach away from food. So it's not just helping to digest food, but what's happening, because you don't have any food, you take an enzyme, it's going to get absorbed in the small intestine into the blood, going to go through the blood, and then those enzymes are going to help to break down debris that's basically built up in the blood vessels and potentially get into the tissues and break it down. So an enzyme is basically a thing that's starting a reaction, right? Or the step in a chemical reaction to happen. And so if an enzyme is initiating a reaction, it can initiate a reaction to actually dissolve or break something down. So things that are people have noticed from like proteolytic enzymes over the years is inflammation lowering, right? Increase energy, better blood flow. And it's just because it's helping to dissolve these like built up things that are in our body. So that's one of the functions, at least that I know of, for proteolytic enzymes.
Yeah. To the leaking blood vessels, you mentioned traumas like mold or glyphosate or different traumatic impacts to the body. What do you think the percentage of the population that's dealing with this right now, as far as like a leaking system, an inefficient system almost, which makes a lot of sense to me, because if we're really talking about, if you just want to look at America, you just looked at our global health dropped below Cuba, where I think we're number 65 now, which is that should be an eye opener. The or the metabolic rates, in the U.S., we're always like, the big question. Everybody wants to lose weight. Do we want to lose weight, or do we want to look at why our bodies are just starting to mass accumulate adipose tissue all around the organs? Like, what do you think? I know there's not a chicken or an egg, but if you had to make your clinical observation on what's going on with our population, why are we experiencing this on such a level?
Um, a lot of people are unwell. Like, if we're really truly honest,
Yeah.
do I feel awesome? Most people are going to say no. And if they say, yeah, I feel great, they're probably so detached from their physical body, so they don't feel anything. You know what I mean? Like, they've had so much
Mm-hmm.
pain over the years that they're like, I don't want to feel this anymore. So let me just, completely detach from that. I mean, research shows that only 12% of American adults, so I'm not sure what it is in other countries, but American adults are metabolically healthy. So
Yeah, I saw that
12%.
figure.
So, I mean, that's basically 9 out of 10 people aren't metabolically healthy. So if 9 out of 10 people are not metabolically healthy, I think that's a pretty accurate thing. And even those that maybe don't fall into the metabolically unhealthy, the question is what else is going on with them? Because we
Mm-hmm.
use like, when I feel something, when I feel a symptom or I feel a pain, that's not something happening to me. That's something happening for me. And this is
Mm-hmm.
a big eye opener we need to shift our perspective on. It's like, oh, why do I have a headache today? It's like your body is trying to communicate with you. Your body's trying to tell you something. You didn't feel that slight pressure in the back of your neck yesterday. So guess what? Today you got a headache. And you know what? If you don't figure out what your body's trying to communicate with you today, tomorrow it's probably going to be a pounding headache. And what do we do as a culture? We try to numb the symptom. Oh, let me give me some Advil or Tylenol. Let's get rid of that. Your body's trying to talk to you. So the moment that we realize, oh my gosh, I'm having a symptom because my physical body is trying to communicate with my soul, if you will, and tell me, hey, I need to address something. And this is the thing, it's not always a physical issue, right? If my knee hurts, it doesn't mean, oh, I got something's wrong with my knee. It could mean, hey, you know what, you got in a fight with your wife last night, you didn't remedy that, like, communication and relationship, and now here's some symptoms so that you step back and say, wait a minute, what's wrong? Because without symptoms, Freddie, we would not look into health. We wouldn't care two bits about health because we would feel great. And so if we feel great, there's no need to do anything but what we're already doing. So the only reason we ever exhibit symptoms or not feel well is so that we pause, reflect, and realize, hey, what am I missing? And a lot of times it's not always just something health related, but it could be something else life related. Maybe you go into a job you hate every day. Well, no wonder you have no energy, because like, you're not doing what your life passion or your purpose or moving in the right direction. And a lot of times that symptom, right, of, oh, I don't feel good, I don't have energy, I have this, now it's hard to breathe, 20 years later it turns into a heart attack or cancer. It's like, that didn't start yesterday. That started
Yeah.
20 years ago with all kinds of other symptoms that you ignored because you're like, oh, I'm too busy. And so your body is just trying to talk to you. So if you are not listening, it's just going to go from a whisper to talking to yelling to just an all out brawl until you acknowledge that. And so I know it's a little disruptive to think of that because it's so easy to be like, why me? And oh my gosh, the things I'm going through. It's like you're doing it to yourself. And the moment that you realize that, you take the power back and you start to listen to your body and you start to realize, oh my gosh, I have to start living a little differently.
Yeah, I do find that that radical ownership, when we're really taking responsibility of everything, we have immediate agency to turn that around. And I think that's the most beautiful thing, even though it's a big step for some people. I've talked about this for a long time, saying that cancer was the absolute best thing that's ever happened to me. And I don't mean that. I'm not trying to be dramatic. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. I wouldn't be as passionate if I didn't have to turn things around. And I probably wouldn't have made the changes to the degree that I'm making now had it not been so severe. Um, I want to keep going on drainage a little bit and a lymphatic system. And so what are steps people do to start to correct this, our vasculature system? The idea of heart. I love that you said, I'm pausing to say that the heart does not pump, because like you, I'm a believer that the charge of our red blood cells does cause flow of blood throughout the body. It is interesting to think about the force that would need to come from the heart, which is like one cell layer thick in certain spots, would explode the heart if it were just one pump sent the blood all the way around. But we won't do a podcast about that right now. What can people do to really improve their cardiovascular health and the health of their vascular system, in your experience?
Yeah. Well, just to finish that thought on the heart, I mean, to think if the heart's actually a pump, right? The blood slows down at the farthest point away from the pump, the red blood cell capillary, or the capillary exchange. And it basically stops and then gets going. It's like, how does something stop and get going in the farthest point away from the pump if the heart is actually a pump, right? So it's just, there's so many questions with that. But
There are.
as far as like looking at the blood vessels, I mean, it comes back to just your overall health of the body. I really believe that toxicity, toxicants, chemicals that we're exposed to is one of the biggest things that holds us back from expressing health. And even in the last few years, as it's kind of been the whole, viral pandemics and this kind of thing, these bugs are out to kill us, and, beware, wash your hands, do all this stuff. It's like we're missing the clear, obvious thing that's really going on is we're being poisoned. We're being poisoned in our food supply. We're being poisoned in our water supply. We're being poisoned in our air supply. Like, we're being poisoned everywhere around. And if they're not talking about toxins and chemicals that are affecting us as human beings, then to me, I'm like, that seems like the most obvious thing that we need to address is how do we limit as many chemical toxin exposures as possible? And you're never going to live in a bubble, so there's always going to be some. But how do we limit the obvious ones? And then how do we promote the body to detoxify? Because if I'm bombarding my body every day with chemicals and toxicants or toxins, then I'm creating inflammation. If I'm creating inflammation, I'm automatically making chronic leaking blood vessels. If I'm making chronic leaking blood vessels, my cardiovascular and my heart and arteries and all that, they're never going to be 100% well because I have chronic leaking blood vessels. It's like having a hose outside. You're trying to water your garden, but you poke holes in the hose on the way. It's like, yeah, you're going to get some water probably through to your garden, but it sure isn't going to be optimal. And there's going to be other consequences that happen. So I really believe in limiting toxin exposure, detoxifying is absolutely critical. In order for that to happen, though, we have to bring pathogen loads down. Parasites are one of the top things to lower because parasites are there in the body in response to the toxins we're exposed to. They're basically like garbage collectors or garbage sponges, if you will. But the problem is we don't want to leave them in our body and be overloaded with them because they're manipulating us with their own chemical secretions that they do. And basically, the easiest way to think about it is bug poop, right? They steal food from us. They produce their waste products, and then we react from the waste products and think, oh, it was the dairy I was drinking. No, it's the parasite that's drinking, that's basically eating up the dairy protein and amino acids, pooping. You're reacting to the poop, and then your brain is linking, oh, it's the milk that I'm allergic to. So we need to bring pathogen loads down. And in order to, and just backing up, right? So if a lot of it's about detoxifying, parasites hold toxins. So you got to clear parasites out to truly get to all the toxins. In order to prepare to get ready for parasites, then we need to support mitochondria, and we need to open up the drainage pathways like we were talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. And I know that CellCore has a new product called Drain Activator. Can we talk a little bit about the formulation and why those unique herbs are in that product?
Yes. Yeah. Drainage Activator. I'm just going to pull the list up here.
That's okay. I can grab it from my cupboard. I'm
I got
beta
it.
testing it, by the way.
Oh,
It's really. Do you want me to? I'm
yeah.
pooping like crazy. Like went up to like 3 times a day. And I really do. I notice like less. I just feel like less inflammation in general, and it's probably I'm 2 weeks in, doing
Okay.
twice
So
a
you're
day.
early.
Yeah, I'm early.
Yeah. If there was, so we have products, the paras we call them,
Mm-hmm.
para 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah,
If
for
I
people
was,
that might hear this for the first time, maybe we can just do a mini walkthrough because CellCore has so many offerings. Not the
yeah,
product catalog, but your main ones.
yeah. So we kind of break things down into different categories, right? So if we look at pathogen elimination,
Yep.
or what we'd really term immune support, we have the
Mm-hmm.
parasite formulas, para 1, 2, 3, and 4. We've got the ISs, which stand for immune support, and those are the BOR, BAB, BART, Boost. So we kind of have the pathogen category. We've got drainage category, which is like advanced TUDCA, which you just mentioned, drainage activator, kale support, lymph active, bowel mover. Those are all basically things to help move the pipes. We've got the mitochondrial category of things, which really BCATP is probably the key one there. But a lot of things in our products, there's a lot of overlaps, if you will. So like CT
Mm-hmm.
minerals is really good for the mitochondria as well too. And then we have the big category of detoxification, which is really the carbons, the bioactive carbon technology, the fulvics and humics that help to bind, restore, repair tissue, and really grab onto those toxins that we don't want and leave. Those are like the Virad chems, the biotoxin binder, HMET, carboxy. And you could put, CT minerals, you could put BCATP in that category too, right? Again, there's a lot of overlaps there, but
Mm-hmm.
the first 4 I mentioned were really the main ones. But drainage activator, that was such a tough one to name because it's like, man, this is so good for the extracellular matrix. Like I wanted to name it ECM, like extracellular matrix something, right? ECM or connective tissue. But as we looked at it, it's like, man, it's doing so much more than that, like metabolically speaking, and it's helping detox things that, other formulas hadn't touched yet. And then it's like when we got a bunch of people on this, trialing before we ever officially came out with it, out of the lab as we're trialing it on, tons of people, we're seeing people getting rid of parasites. It's like, oh my gosh, this could be like para 5. So we basically settled on, drainage activator for the formula. Just that it's activating metabolically a lot of different pathways, which is helping with detoxification support. It's helping with, immune support. Obviously, it's helping with drainage support. It's also, it's going to inherently help mitochondria just because when you clear a lot of the stagnant debris, when you bring pathogen loads down, when you help remove chemicals, like the mitochondria just function better. And that's really what the core of the cell is. That's where our name CellCore came from, is focusing on mitochondria, because we're made of cells, as they say. Inside of every cell is hundreds, if not thousands, and sometimes in the case, a couple million mitochondria per cell. So when you break it down to the really tiny level, it's like the mitochondria don't just make ATP. They're also the main things that store intracellular magnesium. So most of the magnesium in our body is actually stored into the mitochondria. So Mitochondria make 95% of the melatonin in our body. So it's not the pineal as we thought. Now research is coming out that 95% of melatonin, like I mentioned, is made in the mitochondria. Mitochondria are huge with cell danger response. Bob Navio's stuff is something I believe everybody really should look at and study, as a cell danger response, and how important the mitochondria and ATP are, even with cell signaling and communication and immune system. So that's really what we're always looking at, is getting down microscopically down at that level and how everything fits together to improve health.
Amazing. Amazing. So if visiting back to Drainage Activator and components and why you chose the certain elements in that product.
So the big thing that we were originally targeting was, well, I guess backing up. So I was trying to figure out, why do people get puffy as they age? Like, and of course,
some people look fit as fuck.
Exactly, right? There's a huge difference. You're like, why do some people struggle, after they have a kid or after some trauma, or just they hit a certain age, and it's just like they're never the same, and all they talk about is, I never used to be like this, etc.
Yeah.
And so this puffiness, and of course, the puffiness would immediately get associated with, oh, they're fat, right? But I was like, it's not fat. It's like fluid, which then I kept coming back to connective tissue, extracellular matrix, like lymphatic system. So we really were looking at how to solve that, and also how to solve this chronic candida, where people, they go on the candida diet, where they basically cut sugar out, maybe take some antifungals or something like that. And it's like, great, I got it a little bit under control. And then as soon as they have a bite of sugar, it's like comes raging back. It's like, okay, like, again, why do some people are able to eat a lot of sugar and some people can't touch it and their candida flares up? And so what we found was the area of the digestive tract, these microvilli, if you will, like a shag carpeting, they have these things coming up into them. It's an artery and a venous, basically really tiny arteries in each of the microvilli. There's also a lymph, what's called a lacteal, coming up. And what we were figuring out in our testing clinically is that there is debris or buildup happening in these lacteals, which was then causing this inflammation and this candida to chronically be there, because the candida was trying to basically biodegrade or dissolve this debris that was just building up. And so that's what we're originally trying to target. And then as we dove into it and figured out this whole chronic leaky blood vessel syndrome that's actually happening with majority of the population, where it's chronically leaking, it started leading us to all kinds of other things. So that was our main focus when we formulated it. Now we found that obviously we've kind of hit the mother load of things, that it's affecting so many other things. It's one of our biggest sellers all of a sudden. And it's even as new as it is, because of the testimonials that are pouring in from it. So the ingredient wise, we were looking at was originally to target that. But then, of course, as you combine things, right? If I add one ingredient, great. I put some olive leaf extract in there. There's olive leaf. But if I add another ingredient with it, 1 + 1, right? 2 ingredients. It doesn't have to be 1 + 1 = 2. It could be 1 + 1 = 4, depending on the impact or effect you're actually going for. And so we're really big with a lot of our formulas of taking multiple ingredients, because even though, quote unquote, it's natural, like an herb, it could still have a negative reaction, or it could have a side effect. And I know people don't want to say that in the natural world, but that's legitly what's happening. Pharmaceuticals obviously have side effects, but so do herbs. And so when we're combining herbs, we're looking for how to magnify the things we're looking for, and also how to nullify some unwanted side effects that we don't want. So one of the ingredients in Drainage Activator, which is a great example, is St. John's wort. Well, St. John's wort, usually at a higher dose, people talk about, oh, don't take it with antidepressants or SSRIs. And obviously, it goes a little bit more in depth on certain compounds that are actually in the St. John's wort extract when you're manufacturing it. So we make sure we're lower than that, so it's not going to be impactful for SSRIs. But by us using the St. John's wort, we're getting like some amazing benefits, even with the nervous system that you mentioned earlier in the show. It's actually amazing impact positively on the nervous system and some other things with St. John's wort, but we using some other ingredients, like especially some of the mushroom blend and fulvics and some other things in there to help potentially pull down any of the side effects that happen. So in the drainage activator, basically, we're looking at mangista, which is an Ayurvedic herb, definitely known in the lymphatic drainage world for a long time. It's like red. That's what I think mangista means in Sanskrit, is like red. We have olive leaf extract, gotu kola, black cumin seed or Nigella sativa seed, St. John's wort extract, like that I mentioned, mushroom blend, and there's a bunch of mushrooms that we have in there: cordyceps, reishi, shiitake, lion's mane, turkey tail. I think there's another one too. And then we have our carbons, our bioactive carbons, our fulvic and humic blends, and that's kind of our bread and butter. It's a weird saying, bread and butter, but that's our bread and butter with our company, of just being able to take herbs. Because if I take a capsule of an herb, and let's say it's just got ashwagandha in it, right? 100% ashwagandha herb. I take it. That capsule generally opens up in the stomach. You meet a really low pH, which starts tearing apart the herb. So by the time that herb actually gets to the small intestine, you have maybe 80% of it gone or dissolved, maybe 20% left, because our digestive tract is, that's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to break stuff down, extract things, break it down. But if we pair it with fulvic humics, it can help buffer that stomach acid, that low pH. It can help meet it there so it doesn't tear apart the herb. So we can basically shuttle things through the stomach acid to get them in the small intestine so they're more intact. So a lot of people, when they're looking at, I shouldn't say a lot, some people, they're very sciencey and like, well, I see it, 300 milligrams is this dose that does this. It's like, well, first of all, back up a second. If I take something with the product to help more of it get through, then inherently you're not going to need as much. But the second thing, just like the carbons, the second thing to understand is when they're doing research, these labs and manufacture, or these suppliers, if you will, it's like, hey, we got this ingredient, let's get some research out to show the benefits. Like, they're thinking about what's the biggest amount that we can do for research, right? 800 milligrams, 1200 milligrams, because they want to sell a bunch. They're not always looking at what's the lowest amount I can have to have this, impact. And so you're taking a lot of things into account when formulating. That's just some of them. And then, another thing I see in the health realm is like, oh, we scavenge the internet for, or PubMed and research for every single ingredient that's beneficial to mitochondria. And here's the formula. You take these 12 horse pills or these 3 scoops, and it covers everything. It's like, well, ingredients also, like I said, they can be 1 + 1 = 4, or 1 + 1 can actually equal 0, because it could be a minus. It could be a nullification, right? Like if I look at the liver, there's different 3 lobes of the liver. They have different functions. So if I want to target the liver, I don't want to take an ingredient that's going to, accelerate this metabolic process and then add that same ingredient, another ingredient into the same product that could basically nullify that metabolic process. And now it's like, well, but this one's supposed to do this and this one's supposed to do this, but it's like, yeah, but they also could nullify in certain points. So that's just part of things that we take into account when we're formulating in the lab and clinic, testing things out. And I think we've been doing this long enough now in CellCore that we're like hitting our stride and really figuring things out to a higher degree, which I think drainage activators are a great example of that.
Yeah. Does the company ever have the intent to go back and modify pre-existing recipes or formulations, or are things pretty much set as you go forward?
No, we're always open to that. Great question. You always have great questions, Freddie. Such a good dude.
Thanks.
So behind the scenes, as we figured out the drainage activator, for instance, and kind of nailed that down and started looking at its impact and how it fits in with other products and what it's doing, and then getting feedback. And now we're getting more feedback. Now it's out to the masses, the practitioners and all their patients. We're getting more feedback. And what we figured out is that, like, for instance, Lymph Active, we wanted to target a couple other areas a little bit more as we really dove into literature and figuring, how we believe the body is functioning. So like we wanted to give a little more support to the spleen with Lymph Active. And so that's one of the formulas coming out. I don't have an exact date because I don't handle that part. I mean, we have quite a large team, but I know we reformulated that just to make some tweaks to make it that much better. So we don't want to touch things that people love, but also when we identify like, oh my gosh, we could take this to a whole new level. Like I'm always, Todd and I, Dr. Todd Watts and myself, we're always like, talking to everybody like, will you let us? Will you let us? Like, I know it'll be even better, So, that's, yeah, we're always open to making things better and improving. Like we did that in the last year or so with CT iodine, or iodine product. We turned it into a liquid form that people could dose better, and we put a lot of cofactors in it. And then what we found is like you don't need the mega dose of iodine that we were thinking previously. And then the amount of reactions people were having like just almost dropped off like the cliff. Like CT iodine was our most reactive product as far as people getting symptoms and things with the higher amounts of iodine. And so, yeah, we completely reformulated that one, and that's what's called Metabolic Activator. It's a little similar name of drainage activator, but metabolic activator, it's like a liquid. And so we love that one. So yeah, we're not like, this is what it is and it's got to be set in stone. Like, I mean, if it's working, let's not touch it. But if we figure out like, oh my gosh, we can make it better, we're always striving to do that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you have that lateral movement ability, whereas institutions don't. I think that's one of my favorite things about holistic health. I think it's one of my favorite things about being like, a really good functional diagnostic nutrition or School of Applied Functional Medicine is we have so much time to read and research and look at what's current, where somebody in a clinical practice clocking in and clocking out, they're just seeing a landslide of people come in and out of a hospital. There is no room to be current. It's a severe blind spot in the system. And I think this is where it's so important, which leads me up to my next question. Why is CellCore, why is it a practitioner only line?
So we had a retail line called Microbe Formulas. And we have our CellCore Biosciences practitioner line. The products work so well, and I would say the potency is pretty strong, that we felt it was best that people work with practitioners to help on dosing and what they will take or won't take. I understand there's people that don't all fit into that realm, or there's people that have been to 30 practitioners and they're like sick of seeing a practitioner, or finances. And I'm sure you can get our product somewhere online, without a practitioner at some point, or use somebody's shopping cart type of thing. But yeah, we just really we started teaching practitioners in October of 2019, our very first seminar. And Todd and I's idea, it's called ECO, Exponential Clinical Outcomes, which you mentioned. You were at the most recent one. And we had spots for 90 people, right? Sent an email out, within 3 weeks, it was sold out. And then a bunch of people pissed because they're like, I want to go. It's like, well, we literally don't have any room. It's not a big room, 90 people is like slammed. So then the next one, we made it bigger, 120. And that was February of 2020. Sold that out like almost immediately. And it was at that second seminar when I told Todd, I think it was like between day 1 and day 2, I'm like, the practitioners are getting it. They're seeing what we're seeing with mitochondria, with drainage, with parasite cleansing, with the carbon technology, the bioactive carbons, and what they're doing and how different they are. Like I told them, like, we need to go all in on the practitioners, because if we can influence a lot of practitioners, right? If I influence one person in the general public, they might have impact on some friends or family members. But if I can influence a practitioner and they have 1,000 patients, or they're going to, have such and such, and they have more authority to help guide people. So that's just the direction we personally take. We decided in 2020 just to put more and more effort and time into the practitioners. And, that's where ECO, started in 2019 of 90 people to the last one you were just at was about 1,500. I think we had 800 and some in person, and, the rest virtually, which was just, insane. It was, the energy in there is just so amazing. And so, yeah, I wish we could be everything for everybody. But I guess we just decided to go all in with the practitioners and really focus that direction. And I think it's the right one. Of course, somebody listening might be like, well, Dr. J, it's like, I know, but we gotta stay in our lane and say what we're good at. And honestly, some of the stuff is so It sounds weird to say this, but it's so cutting edge and it's so disruptive that I feel like practitioners are best to hear it initially. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've had so many disruptive type talks, whether it's Lyme disease and its pleomorphism, to vitamin D and its differing our different thoughts than what everybody basically says. You know, take a vitamin D and you're fine. To, you know, chronic leaking blood vessels, to the germ theory. I mean, in 2020 in August, our third eco that we had to go virtual because of the climate of the world was in. I mean, we just blew the lid off of the germ theory, virus theory thing, and it's just like it's just been a rocket since then. So, I feel like we just want to try to find what seems to be the truth or facts and just explore that area, even if it's not a quote unquote the standard institutionalized thing, and
Mm-hmm.
run with it and see where it goes. And obviously it's, you know, it's definitely feels like there's been some divine, you know, help we've had, you know, navigating and just being okay going through some of these muddy waters against some of the big institutions and things, but it's going
Yeah.
really well.
I think it's really important. I mean, I join with you. There's just so much, even from 15 years ago, and I just did a episode the other day, and I was like, man, I would get so buzzed searching the internet for all these different things. And 15 years ago to today, there's so much more information and opinions, and you'll drown. I don't know how someone would ever come up with a clear pathway other than somebody that is working in a clinical practice, seeing people, and understands what an outlier is, understands how to work with I like the term icky yucky feeling as opposed to a side effect or a react, because those they happen. And so who is going to be there to support you and keep you on track? Because in my experience, I'm such a bad editor in how I'm doing. Like I need another person to mirror back to me and to tell me that it's going to be 120 days, might be 90 days, before I decide something has or has not worked for me in 2 weeks, which is the
Yeah.
norm, right? People are very quick to say, oh, it's not working. It's like, well, what's not working? It really is. You got to have somebody that can look at the whole picture, like we've said a couple times on this podcast. I
Yeah.
don't know if you have
It
any
can,
thoughts on that.
oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, people that come in, I haven't worked with patients individually for a while now, just doing all the research and education for CellCore. You know, working on that day in, day out last, you know, almost 5 years now. But and I still, right, friends and family, like I'm still going to help people. Like I have a huge
Mm-hmm.
heart. So I see something, I'm going to assist you, but I don't formally have a clinic. Right. Um, but it's so easy where somebody's like, man, I have horrible migraines and gut issues and my ankle hurts. And they start going down the program. And they're like, oh my gosh, my ankle just kills. I don't think this is helping, just like you're saying. And it's like, well, how's your migraines? Oh, those are gone. What about your stomach? Oh, that's fine. And it's like we get the human nature, we get so short-sighted, you know,
Yeah.
like sighted of forgetting about where we were. Like, I think we just need to take a moment, pause, reflect, look backward and be like, where was I a year ago or 2 years ago or 5 years ago? Where I'm at today, and just have some gratitude of like, oh, I've learned, even if you quote unquote don't feel better, there's probably a lot that you've learned that doesn't work, or learned about certain things of like, man, this is a bad habit, or I shouldn't have probably spent time in that direction. Like I maybe should have navigated this. Like we always are learning from it, where human nature is we always looking forward of like, what's the ideal, what's the perfect scenario, and then we compare back to that, which is always anxiety, frustration, anger, because it's like, when are you ever going to reach that ideal? Like we need
Mm-hmm.
a goal, and we need of like, this is the direction I want to move. But when we measure, we have to look backward of like, where was I a week ago? Where was I 6
Yeah.
months ago? And just that little shift can make immense roads into peace and harmony and balance in your mind, because a lot of this is a mental game.
Yeah.
Like in the best of the best, right? Musicians, singing artists, sports people, golf, baseball, guess what they all have? They all have coaches. Even if they're quote unquote the elite and the best, like they all have coaches. So it's like, why wouldn't everybody else want coaches for different areas of their life? I mean, I've had coaches for our relationship, my wife and I's relationship, after she got well, quote unquote well, 2012, she almost died. It was about 2014 where it was like life coming back into her. But then we looked at our relationship and it's like, we're like roommates. We're like friends. We're not like husband, wife. And so we look for coaching, somebody that we looked up to as like, I want what they have. Right. And we did that. And now I'm happy to say like our relationship's the best it's ever been today than it ever was. You know what I mean? But that wouldn't have got there as quickly without a coach. So I'm absolutely stoked that people put the time in to listen and research, but also you need to just, sometimes get an evaluation of yourself outside of yourself to be like, hey, what do you think? Because sometimes a coach or like a practitioner will say like, hey, you're just missing this. Oh my gosh, I never would have figured that out. Or that would have, it's like, yeah, exactly. That's the whole point of this, right? This is this earthly experience of, like taking it up a notch. Like take responsibility for yourself, but then don't be afraid to reach out to others for some assistance or some help to help speed the process up.
Yeah. Yeah. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. I would love to ask you two more questions. As far as like taking a look at the body, pulling out a little bit, what are some of what are your three favorite diagnostic tests to do on a body? That could be anything from body adipose index to thermometry to thermography to blood chemistry. Are there things you love to look at that are just kind of like your three fave?
Wow. You got some great questions, Freddie. The first one that comes to mind is sleep score. I really love to measure sleep. Now, this can be a double-edged sword because I hear people that they're losing the mental game of like, I can't measure my sleep because I see the score, it just wrecks my day. It's like, okay, like there's that piece of it. But I feel like the more that somebody can optimize their sleep, how much deep, how much REM, the quality of their sleep, oh my gosh, a lot changes. So like we're in a new house that we moved into. So we've been kind of living out of suitcases for about 6 months. And now we're finally in our house that we've been remodeling, maybe 6 weeks, right? So we're in this middle of just unpacking and things like that. And last night, my wife's like, hey, can you raise the bed up? And so in Puerto Rico, when we lived there, we had incline bed therapy, where basically the whole frame of the bed is just lifted up on one side. So it's completely flat, right? It's not like not any concave. And she's like, I just slept so good. So we did that last night. And then before bed, I just love her. She's like, I'm going to beat you. I'm like, what? In sleep? I'm like, oh, it's on, So it's like, okay, put the phones away, lay down, And I got 87 on my Aura. I like the Aura just because you can put it in airplane mode. And then my wife, she's got an Aura too. And she beat me. She had like 91 and 90. I was like, oh, dang it. But it's just a friendly competition. So I like, and that's the first time that she actually ever said that, which is funny. But her sleep score just went up 5 points, even just flipping the bed up. So it's like, oh, okay, maybe that is impactful because we slept like that for so long and then didn't for now like 7-8 months in this whole transition and now back to it. So I'm a huge fan of just testing things out for yourself. See how you respond to different things. I love measuring sleep. I think that's a great one. Gosh, I'm a really big fan of muscle testing and that type of evaluation. So I really like somebody else checking me out and just, muscle testing or resonating or, some form of feedback like that to see what's going on with the body. I also think just like digital or paper assessments going, that would probably be my third one, is filling that out, different categories, right? So there's categories for drainage and rating your drainage and parasites and Lyme and, these different things, thyroid, that kind of thing. And just taking a self-assessment because it's so easy 6 months or a year from now just to completely forget about like how you felt. And it's kind of like a way to journal, to track yourself and to see, because if you can see that you're like, oh yeah, I do feel better. It just helps mentally to know like, hey, maybe you're not exactly where you want to be, but you're moving in the right direction. Like keep moving, right? Some of the hardest things for human nature is just to feel like you're not making any tracks. If you're not making any progress or forward like I said, tracks, like making any progress, then a lot of times you want to stop. So if you can see that things are moving in the right direction, which the only way to do that is really document or, have some way to assess. I think that's great. So I'd say sleep score. What was my second one now?
Muscle testing.
Yeah, muscle testing,
And then
assessment.
subjective experience,
Yep.
intake form.
Yep. Yep. I like those, but I'm a huge fan of, running labs. Huge, but there can be, depending on the specialty lab and the cost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that. There's also some really cool technology now too, just body composition. You kind of mentioned that earlier.
Yeah.
Where you can literally take a picture of yourself and AI can estimate your body composition just from a picture. And the accuracy now is literally about the same as a DEXA scan. So it's pretty crazy right now what's happening. And that just gives the ability for somebody at home just to, privately check yourself like, oh my gosh, I'm, like 24% body fat. Like I was 19 last year. It's like, okay, well, it's not about losing weight. It's about being healthy. And as you're healthy, your body will change shape. Your body will look different. Your eyes will sparkle different. Your skin will look different. Your whole being will be different. So it's just ways, what makes sense to you to measure and what will help keep you on track. Because we just need accountability.
Yeah. I work out in Austin, Texas at a place called Lifetime, which is like, it's like the Walmart of gym. It's like, it's a really nice gym, but it's massive.
It's
It's like a
huge.
huge, big
Yeah.
family center. There's a water slide inside, there's a water slide outside. And they've been getting more and more into the recovery. So they have some compression gear, they have some beds that do water massage, they have massage guns and balls, but then they have an in-body scan. And I was like, oh, they've got in-body, which is, for people not understanding or not in the belief system that we are an electric body, it's a pad where you step on two galvanic plates, you hold two galvanic skin responders, and it runs electrical current. And the time that it takes from go to each side is how fat you are, how much water you have, how much skeletal muscle. And that thing it's within 1% of what my DEXA scan was. I was like, this is amazing. And so anybody, there's probably 25,000 people in this gym in Texas, can go do that metric. It's free. I can text it to my phone. I put in my code. It charts me, every 2 months. I was like, man, we have come so far to the tools that we have access to. It's just incredible time to be alive, which
That's
I'm always
awesome.
stoked about. Yeah.
That's cool that they're moving in that direction. It makes sense, but it's really cool to hear that.
It does, because how many times can you look at the thing and be like, oh, it's not working. What I'm doing is not working. Why show up? Why show up to the gym every week? So I'm a really big fan of, I really like the skeletal muscle and how much water if you're dehydrated. What a great metric to be able to use. And
Well,
then Aura does all the HRV and stuff now.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the HRV. So that I should have mentioned that with the sleep score is I like measuring sleep time HRV. I also have a chest strap Polar that you can measure HRV during the day or first thing in the morning. I do find it's different than at night. So just being able to track that. But I was just going to say with the Lifetime Fitness, it's cool to see them get into recovery because it's been so much time about just diet exercise. But it's like you could only exercise so much to how fast you can recover after the exercise before you exercise again. And that's, again, the sleep, emphasis is just recovering, like repairing and getting into a rest, digest, right? The whole, polyvagal, ventral vagal stimulation, right? Just being able to calm the body down and come into a healing side. So it's really cool to see gyms doing that. I'm sure more and more are going to keep moving toward that.
Yeah, I think there's a wave of collective consciousness going across the country, and where people, they, for the first time more than ever, are understanding the importance of their health, that they really have nothing without it. And think about how hard we work, how many hours we spend endlessly to just buy this, like, for lack of a better term, material shit that gives us no joy, gives us nothing. But everybody will pull back and be like, "Oh my God, I could never invest that in my health." I think that's slowly whittling away. I see that anyway. And the other thing that I'm seeing more and more of are people who come to me asking questions that are in amazing shape, that have like 12 packs and they're not healthy. They're not healthy. Just because you have muscle on your body does not mean your lymphatic or your drainage is working at all. And I've seen that. I just did a class with Desiree Despong from Flowpresso last weekend when I was an example for manual lymph node release. It was telling. I mean, where the body holds. Fascinating stuff. I want to ask you your final question. If you have a magic wand, you can wave it across a magic TV screen that you can get access to everybody on the planet. You get a minute and a half to talk to everybody. What words would you offer the people of planet Earth at this time? Speak
That's a
from your
pretty
heart.
big, yeah,
It's
it's a
a
pretty
big
big
one.
request. I would say we've been lied to on so many things, and it's time to wake up. I mean, from looking at the pharmaceutical industry and the whole petroleum, Rothschilds, basically annihilating natural medicine and thinking that the standard medical care is the only thing and the best thing that's out there. Like, wake up. We've been lied to. I mean, we've been lied to on the energy crisis. We've been lied to on climate. We've been lied to on so many things. And until we become aware of those lies, we can't step beyond and see what the truth is or start to explore what the other possibilities are. Same thing with the germ theory. I mean, bugs are not out to kill us. And as soon as we realize that, we start asking questions. And the place where we as a society begin to ask questions is when we're going to get answers that we're ready for. But if we're just being told what to believe and here's how it is, that's a completely different space than for us asking questions. And does this make sense? Does this fit into a philosophy? Does this, how does this fit into, big view? How did germ theory ever start? How did the pharmaceutical industry ever start? Like, if you actually start going back in research, 1910, the Flexar report, and you start seeing these type of things, you start realizing, oh my gosh, what was the first virus ever discovered, right? Yellow fever, which was not ever a virus. They didn't even have microscopes to do that. And it was a complete fraud. It's like, well, if that was a fraud, like what else is moving forward? And so I think we need to start asking questions. We need to start looking back in history and see what we got wrong and start reevaluating so that we can figure out what's truly right or start moving at least in a better direction today.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people out there that join with you in that, and I know from so many my friends that are in the medical industry, they're doctors, they're nurses, they are also frustrated and they're burnt out and they're tired. And I do see this. People are asking better questions. So I think that's great advice. Ask better questions and you'll probably get the answer that you're ready for. Dr. J, you are an awesome guest. You'll definitely be back a third time if you'll spend an hour with us. It's such an honor to have your insight on this, and I'm going to see you at ECO in 2024.
Sounds great, Freddie. Yeah, I'm up for a three-peat, so.
Great. Great. I love it. Well, thank you for being a guest on the Beautifully Broken podcast. Namaste.